I'm Major Julia Whitmore. 14 years in internal investigations taught me that truth hides in quiet places, and betrayal wears familiar faces. That night, under the chandeliers of the new officers' dining hall, I realized I'd missed both. The event was polished, just like my sister's dress uniform. Vanessa had overseen the entire renovation, from the custom lighting to the etched crest in the glassware. She looked proud, but her smile didn't quite reach her eyes, and I should have noticed that sooner. I arrived 10 minutes early. Habit. The base was buzzing with commanders, advisors, and dignitaries, everyone shaking hands, sipping champagne, laughing too loudly. I kept to the side, blending into the noise. I'd been trained to watch before acting. That night, it saved me. Vanessa approached with 2 glasses in hand. "To us," she said, lifting one toward me. "You always said family and duty should be celebrated." Her tone was light, teasing, and for a moment, I wanted to believe it. I took the glass, nodded, and didn't sip. When she was called to greet a general across the room, I stayed seated. The bubbles in my glass rose and popped in eerie rhythm. I didn't know what to feel. Then he stepped closer. "Ma'am, may I speak with you briefly?" The voice was low, steady, clipped. I turned to see a staff sergeant from base security. Older, clear eyes, honest posture. I nodded once. "I saw Lieutenant Whitmore pour something into your drink." He didn't flinch. Small vial. Clear liquid. My pulse didn't race. My breath didn't hitch. Instead, I felt something quieter. A kind of stillness that only comes when a puzzle finally clicks into place. "Thank you," I said, setting the glass aside. My sister had once wrapped her arm around me during our father's funeral and whispered, "We've only got each other now." That same hand had just tilted a vial above my drink. My name, my rank, my bloodline. They didn't shield me. They painted a target on my back. I didn't report it. Not yet. I didn't raise an alarm or draw attention. I smiled when Vanessa returned and asked why I hadn't taken a sip. I told her I was pacing myself. She laughed and said I was getting soft. I nodded. But inside, I was already writing the first line of the case file. Because I knew this wasn't about a single drink. It wasn't even about the money. It was about betrayal crafted by someone who knew exactly how to hide it in plain sight. And I was going to find out why. I didn't panic. That's the first rule in an investigation. You never react louder than the threat. I kept the glass close but untouched, watching Vanessa float through the room like she had nothing to hide. Her timing had been exact. She waited for the cameras to flash, for the toasts to rise, for the perfect moment to make it look innocent. But I've made a career out of reading what people try to hide. The rest of the evening passed in snapshots. A senator's wife is complimenting the decor. A colonel is asking about my upcoming reassignment. Vanessa checking back in with forced warmth and another glass in hand, just in case you changed your mind. I smiled and declined. My fingers never left the stem of the first. When the ceremony ended, I excused myself quickly. No goodbyes, no explanations. Just a quiet exit down the back stairwell. I wrapped the champagne flute in my dress jacket and slid it into a padded case I kept for evidence transport. Old habits. Necessary ones. Back in my quarters, I logged into a private channel and sent a message to Dr. Lydia Suarez at the Joint Forces Medical Lab in Fort Sam, Houston. We'd worked on a fraud case together 3 years ago, involving falsified vaccinations. I trusted her more than I trusted most people wearing stars. Need toxicology? As soon as possible. I typed. Sample en route. Quiet chain. Code. Echo 5. No logs. She replied within minutes. Copy. FedEx overnight. Do not label. I packed the glass in a reinforced shipping tube, triple sealed, and dropped it into the next secure military pouch headed for San Antonio. No one would think twice. Uniforms and sealed documents fly under the radar when wrapped in protocol. That night, I sat at my desk, staring at nothing. My mind is split between roles. Sister, officer, target. I replayed her expression when I took the glass. Too eager, too rehearsed. Not love, something else. I opened my notebook and jotted down one word. Intent. I didn't need proof of the liquid yet. I needed to know why. Because this wasn't a careless act. It was planned. And people like Vanessa didn't plan lightly. The storm hadn't broken yet, but I felt it coming. Quiet. Precise. Measured like a countdown. And I'd already started the clock. The results arrived 48 hours later, encrypted under a code name only Lydia and I used. I opened the file on my secured terminal, the sterile light of the screen washing the room in blue. The first line stopped me cold. Chloral hydrate and propranolol. Together, they create a perfect cocktail for cardiac suppression. Enough to slow the body until it looks like heart failure. Untraceable after a few hours. I stared at the chemical formula printed in neat black text. Vanessa would have known exactly what it could do. She studied pharmacology during her medical officer training at West Point. The same detail that once made me proud of her now felt like the knife's edge pressing against my ribs. I forwarded the report to an encrypted drive and shut down the laptop. The room felt heavier, air tighter, like I had stepped into a place where family didn't exist, only motive. My training told me to compartmentalize, but this wasn't an ordinary case. This was blood, my own. I went back to the procedure. Always procedure. I opened the internal database, filtered my personnel records, and traced any recent changes. The first flag hit within seconds. A digital signature was added to a life insurance policy under my name. The signature wasn't mine. The date was 2 weeks ago. The beneficiary, Captain Patrick Hayes. Patrick. The name twisted something in my chest that had nothing to do with duty. We served together once in Afghanistan. I trusted him then, maybe more than I should have. After the deployment, he joined the intelligence division, and I let him drift out of my life. Apparently, he hadn't drifted far enough. The policy value was $3.5 million. Effective immediately upon my death. I scrolled through the metadata, created by Vanessa's system ID, authorized from Patrick's office terminal. My pulse stayed steady, but something colder replaced it. Calculation. Proof builds cases. Emotion ruins them. I opened a fresh page in my notebook, wrote the date, the chemicals, the forged document, the names. I underlined each one slowly until the ink pressed through the paper. Chloral hydrate. Beta blockers. Vanessa Whitmore. Patrick Hayes. The combination was toxic in every possible way. Outside, the night air over the base was still. But I could feel something shifting. It wasn't paranoia. It was clarity. The kind that comes when you finally accept that the war has already started, and this time, the battlefield is your own family. I named it Operation Iron Silence. It wasn't revenge. It was protocol, precision, and the only way I knew how to breathe when betrayal hit close. The mission was clear. Document everything. Trust no one outside the circle. And move like shadows. First, I brought in Meera Patel, former JAG officer. Sharp as a scalpel and twice as quiet. We'd worked black-level cases before, the kind that never made headlines. She didn't ask why. She just said, "How deep are we going?" I answered, "All the way to the marrow." Next was Austin Rourke. Retired captain. Once ran cyber intel out of Langley's auxiliary command. He owed me a favor. I cashed it in with one call. He showed up the next day with 2 firewalled laptops and a look that said he'd burn the entire network if I asked. Last was Marcus Avery. Surveillance expert. Ex-Special Forces recon. He'd caught a traitor once, using only a backpack mic and a mirror. He now handled security for private contractors, but dropped everything when I mentioned the phrase family threat. We set up a base of operations in an unused logistics trailer near the edge of the airstrip, nondescript, windowless, secure. Mira established the legal chain. Austin set up data sniffers. Marcus retrieved the backup footage from the dining hall's overhead camera grid. The video was clear. Vanessa standing beside me, tilt of the hand, silver vial, 1 second pause, no hesitation, no glance around. Just the practiced precision of someone who had done this before. Austin isolated metadata from my personnel file. We found traces of access, routed through an off-site IP belonging to Fort Meade's satellite office. Patrick's last known posting. The timestamps matched the edits on my insurance policy. One file also showed a trace of keylogging software deployed to my home terminal. I felt no rage, just confirmation, the kind of truth that doesn't need explanation. I documented everything in a sealed case file, triple encrypted. One copy went to Mira, one to a cloud server under a decoy name. One I carried in a drive stitched into the lining of my uniform jacket. Marcus tapped into Vanessa's base housing cameras. Over the course of 3 nights, he recorded 3 different meetings between her and Patrick. Always quiet. Always late. Once, she handed him a folder. Another time, he handed her a silver case. The exact type used for medical vials. I didn't confront them. Not yet. I didn't change my routine or signal I knew. I let them believe I was still playing sister. Still blind. Still loyal. Because once people think they've won, they stop hiding their tracks. By week's end, I had the start of a map. Vanessa. Patrick. A chemical formula. A falsified document. A shared motive. And now, proof of action. The next step wasn't confrontation. It was bait. I told Mira, I want them to think I'm sick. Fading. She raised an eyebrow. You're going to bait your own sister? I nodded once. If she thinks I'm near the edge, she'll try to push. Mira didn't ask more. She just opened a new file and labeled it Phase 2. The clock had already started ticking. I let the color drain from my face just enough. Skipped 2 briefings. Missed a morning run. Told one of the medics I'd been feeling faint. Heart skipping more than usual. Word spread fast, as it always does in tight units. Within hours, Vanessa called. Her voice was syrup smooth. You should rest. Come stay with me for a few days. We'll catch up. I agreed without hesitation, letting her think the wall was cracking, that I was drifting toward the edge. Vulnerability, real or not, made a perfect lure. I arrived at her quarters late in the afternoon, just as the sun dipped behind the hangars. My bag was light but packed with what mattered. A tracker, 2 audio bugs, 1 encrypted relay hidden inside a vitamin bottle. Mira's suggestion. Vanessa opened the door, like nothing had changed. You look pale, she said. I smiled. Been worse. Oh, that night, while she reheated soup, I slipped the relay under the console table. It pulsed once. Connected. Marcus confirmed the signal. Austin flagged her laptop's location. Within 10 minutes of my arrival, it pinged the base's financial records server. A new policy submission. Life insurance again. This time, worded more carefully. Still naming Patrick. Still waiting on one thing, my death. I sipped the soup slowly and asked her about her work. She talked in long, winding circles. I nodded, let her fill the silence. That's what guilty people do. They talk when they should be watching. After she went to bed, I checked the app on my secure phone. The tracker under her car had moved earlier that day. A short trip. 14 minutes at an address linked to a name flagged in Patrick's files. An independent contractor. Former intelligence fixer. $25,000 transferred from Patrick's account just 2 days ago. The bait was working. They thought the window had opened. That time was running out. I stayed in that house like a patient. Quiet. Steady. Watching every move. They were setting the trap. And so was I. The evening air was sharp with October chill. As I walked toward Vanessa's quarters, I wore soft colors. No medals, no rank. Just enough fatigue in my shoulders to sell the part. Mira walked beside me, carrying a messenger bag with a government tag. She was playing the assistant, but inside that bag was every tool we'd need to dismantle the lie. Vanessa opened the door with a smile too bright for the hour. Her voice was syrup again. "You look so much better. I made your favorite." She let us in like we were guests, and not a threat. The table was set for 3, candlelight, cloth napkins, and on the sideboard, a familiar bottle of champagne with the same silver cap. "You still drink that brand?" I asked lightly. "It's expensive." She laughed, waving a hand. "One indulgence never hurt." Mira stepped into the kitchen under the pretense of taking a call, slipping a fingerprint cloth from her bag. Her phone camera clicked once. Then again. Dinner was chicken with rosemary, and something meant to taste like home. Vanessa kept the conversation shallow. Her voice carried just a little too far. Patrick arrived 10 minutes late. Casual clothes. Too casual. A folder under his arm. "What's that?" I asked. He smiled. "Just something to sign. Clean and simple." I took a sip of water. No champagne. "Not tonight." Vanessa kept watching me, looking for signs of drowsiness. Weakness. None came. Halfway through dinner, I set my fork down. Looked up casually. "You know, alcohol mixed with beta blockers can be lethal. Slows the heart too much. Sometimes people just fall asleep and don't wake up." Vanessa's fork slipped. A soft clink against the plate. Patrick froze. Sweat glistened on his brow. No one spoke. I took another sip of water. "Anyway," I said, pushing back gently from the table. "Dinner's lovely." "Thank you." I stood, smoothing my shirt. "Give my regards to the contractor." Her eyes twitched. "Contractor?" "Oh," I smiled. "Just a name I saw linked to Patrick's account. Might have misread." Her face drained a little. Mira stepped forward, bag already zipped. "We should get going." Vanessa nodded too fast. Patrick didn't move. As we walked out, I didn't look back. The air outside felt cleaner somehow. I glanced at Mira. She gave one sharp nod. The bugs were in place. The prints were logged. The bait had been swallowed. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like prey. The conference room on the 3rd floor of the base command building was all glass and steel. No windows. No distractions. Just one long table and 2 sealed envelopes resting at its center. Mira stood at the corner, arms folded. Marcus and Austin sat behind her, silent but present. Vanessa and Patrick entered right at 10. Pressed uniforms. No smiles. Just the smug composure of people who still believed they were in control. I didn't stand. Just nodded toward the seats across from me. "Let's get started." Mira pressed a button on the tablet. The screen behind me lit up with the first image. Vanessa's hand was hovering over my drink. Silver vial in frame. Patrick is leaning in. His mouth caught mid-whisper. "She'll rest soon." The room went still. Next came the lab results. Chloral hydrate. Beta blockers. Lethal dosage confirmed. Then the insurance policy was with Patrick listed as the beneficiary. Created within 24 hours of the dining hall event. Backdated. Signed with a forged signature. The final blow came in numbers. Offshore accounts. Wire transfers. $820,000 siphoned to a shell firm. Co-owned by Vanessa and Patrick. A fixer on contract. Timelines matched down to the minute. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I let each piece of evidence land and settle like dust in a quiet room. Then, I slid the 2 envelopes across the table. "Option A," I said. "You both walk. Broke. Dishonored. But free." I tapped the second envelope. "Option B, everything goes to JAG and federal review. Military prosecution. Public disgrace. And prison." Patrick stared at the paper like it might vanish. Vanessa looked at me like she had never seen me before. For once, her voice didn't come. No defense. No spin. Mira broke the silence. Your fingerprints are on the vial. Your digital IDs are on the contract edits. Your fixer has already been interviewed. The paper trail is clean. Vanessa's hand trembled as she reached for envelope A. Patrick followed. Their signatures were shaky. Not rushed. Just defeated. When it was done, I stood slowly. Justice doesn't need to yell. It just needs to arrive. Mira collected the documents and sealed them. One final stamp. Official. They left the room without a word. The glass door clicked behind them like a verdict. I looked down at the table, now empty except for my notebook and a pen. This wasn't a victory, it was a conclusion, and it was enough. I never filed charges. Mira asked twice, maybe 3 times, if I was sure. I told her I was. Not because they didn't deserve it, but what they feared more than a cell was being seen for who they really were. Instead, I used what they took and what they almost cost me to start something that could actually help. A small fund at first. Quiet. Focused on veterans who'd been financially exploited by their own families. The cases came faster than I expected. Some looked like mine, some were even worse. My father's old watch still sits in a drawer beside the first sealed envelope. It stopped the day I walked out of that room and restarted 2 days later. Like it knew the storm had passed. He used to say justice wasn't about noise, it was about timing. Some wounds don't bleed. They just settle beneath the skin and wait for order. I didn't forgive Vanessa. But I didn't hate her anymore either. What was left between us wasn't emotion. It was space. Now, I spend my mornings by the water, reading letters from people who thought silence meant weakness until someone answered back. They write in quiet voices, too. But I hear them loud and clear, and now and then, I feel that same peace settle in. Not revenge, not pride, just truth. Living on in places no one can steal.